Hi there, I'm Adrian and today I want to talk about I Walk the Line by Johnny Cash. Now obviously this is a stone cold classic of a song and the name Johnny Cash doesn't need any introduction, but the name Luther Perkins might be a bit more unfamiliar to some of you. He's the guy who played guitar on this song. Got a very distinctive guitar style, has now gone down as one of the great names in rockabilly, rock and roll and country guitar, but all the more amazing considering he was originally a mechanic who kind of fell into playing with Johnny Cash almost by accident, just being in the right place at the right time, and as I said, went on to become one of the sort of greatest names in this style of music. So I'm going to be showing you how to play that iconic introduction that I just played for you at the start of this lesson. Also want to talk a little bit about the rest of the song as well, which is really good fun to play. It goes through a series of interesting key changes, but let's start by looking at that introduction. Now I'm playing this song in standard tuning with no capo. If you listen to the original recording of this tune, you'll find that all the chords I'm about to show you sound 1 fret higher, so possibly this means that Perkins used a capo at the 1st fret when he recorded this song. I've actually checked out some video footage of him playing the song live, and although the guitar sounds 1 fret higher, there's no capo in evidence. So another possibility is that he tuned his whole guitar up a semitone. I suppose we'll never really get to the bottom of exactly what he did there, but either way it doesn't particularly matter. If you do want to play along to the original recording, then you'll want to just slap a capo on your guitar at the 1st fret. But let's get down to business and look at this introduction. Now with the basic harmony, the basic chords that we're outlining here go like this. We've got a bar of A, and then a bar of D, 2, 3, 4, a bar of A, and a bar of E, and then B7 for a bar, and back to E for I think 4 or so bars. So that's the basic sort of harmony that is being outlined in the song. But Perkins isn't playing big chords like that. He's essentially playing a bass line on his guitar. So playing a bass line or a bass melody on the lowest 2 or 3 strings of the guitar. That's a really kind of signature part of his style. So although it's made up, the part is made up of this bass line, I think it makes sense to hold down those chord shapes as you go, because as we'll see in a couple of minutes, we're actually going to be playing some of the other notes in those chords as well, which is really going to help make this part come to life. But I'm just going to start off by showing you those low notes, that bass line. We're going to start like this with a 3-note pickup. We've got the open low E string, then the 2nd fret, and then the 4th fret on the low E string, and that's just coming in before the downbeat of bar 1. So I think it's starting on the and of 3. So it's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then we're into the A chord. So hold down your A chord shape, but in fact we're just going to be playing the open 5th string, open 6th string, and then back to the 5th string twice, then the 2nd fret and the 4th fret on the 5th string. So and the rhythm is 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then we're going to a D chord. Going to play the open 4th string, open 5th string, open 4th string again twice, and then 4 to 2 on the 5th string. The rhythm is the same: 1, 2, 3, and 4, and back to the A chord. Play the 5th string, 4th string, which you're holding down at the 2nd fret, then the 5th string again twice, and then 4 to 2 on the 6th string. So that bar is. Then we're going to hold down an E chord, play the low E string, then the 2nd fret on the A string, play that note again, and then open to open on the low E string. So now to a B7 chord. I'm going to play the 5th string, which is held down at the 2nd fret. Then the 4th string held down at the 1st fret. Back to the 5th string, 2, open, 4 to 2 on the 6th string, and then we're back to an E chord. And on the E chord, we're just going to be playing the 6th string, rocking back and forth between the 6th string and the 5th string. So that's our bass line. Let me just put all of that together for you. We've got 1, 2, 3. So that by itself sounds pretty good, but one thing you can do to make this sound really authentic and really like the recording is to add some strums on the sort of higher notes in each of those chords on the offbeats where those are available to you. So for instance, on that first A chord, I'm just going to be strumming the higher notes of the chord on the offbeats, on the ands. So we've got the bass note, then I'm strumming the upper notes in that A chord. Now on the recording, Luther Perkins has got quite a light touch on these offbeats. He's not really emphasizing them, so you might, rather than playing all of the higher notes in the chord, you might just be touching a couple of strings. So I'll play the 5th string, then maybe play the 3rd and 4th strings fairly lightly. I mean, you don't need to be too precise about this, but that's roughly what I'm going for, I think. So we play the bass note, play the offbeat on the middle 2 strings, then play the next bass note, and then strum the offbeat again. So then we've got our kind of walk up to the next chord change. We hit the D chord and we do the same thing. We play the root note, then strum a couple more notes in that chord on the offbeat. So 1 and 2 and. Walking back down to the A chord, 1 and 2 and. Walking down to the E chord. Where you can, where you've got those offbeats and you're not doing the walk up or the walk down, then strum some of the other notes in the chord. It really helps the whole thing to groove. You can either just do one strum, a down strum, or you can do a quick upward strum as well. That's kind of equally effective. So on the E chord, just if I demonstrate that on the A chord, for instance, we could have this. Kind of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Or you could do a quick upward strum as well. 1, 2 and. So you could do either one of those, or mix up the two approaches, which I think is what Luther Perkins does. So something like that. Don't need to be super precise. I mean, he's kind of varying the exact notes he's playing and the exact strumming pattern as he goes along during the course of the song. But essentially that's how to play the introduction. The rest of the song then, and Luther Perkins is approaching this in exactly the same way as he played the introduction. So we've got this bass note and strum going on with the right hand, and then in the left hand we're holding down some quite simple open position chords. So I'm just going to talk you through this approach just on a single chord to start with, on an A chord, and then once you understand what's going on there, I think it's a relatively simple task to apply that to all of the other chords in the song. So if we hold down an A chord, now on beats 1 and 3 we're going to need to play the root note of the chord. In this case it's an A chord, but play the root note of whichever chord you happen to be on. So we're going to play the open 5th string. Then on beats 2 and 4 we're going to play another note in the chord, and usually it's the note found on the next string higher or the next string lower. So in the case of this A chord, we could alternate between the 5th string on beat 1 and then on beat 2, play the 4th string, and then do that again on beats 3 and 4. So we'd have this kind of thing going on. So going between the root of the chord and then the next higher string, which is an E note, actually the 5th in terms of that note's position in the A scale. So we've got the root 5th. Now, alternatively, you can go down to the next lowest string, and that would sound like this. So there I'm going between the root note on 1 and 3, and then I'm playing the low E string on beats 2 and 4. So that's just another option. Essentially, it amounts to the same thing. We're still going from an A note to an E note, a root to a 5th. We're either going lower or we're going higher. So you've got the option to do either of those things. I think what Luther Perkins does is he kind of varies what he does a little bit during the course of the song. So it should then, as I say, be fairly easy then just to apply that to all of the other chords. So if you're playing a D chord, you can play the root note, which is the 4th string, and then go lower or go higher. And the same with all of the other chords in the song. Of course, then you're going to need to add in your offbeat strumming in the rest of the chord, and that would sound like this. We'd have or going down to that lower bass note instead. You can do that on all of the other chords in the song. So an E chord, B7 chord, and so on. If you like, you could add a little bit of palm muting to these chords. I think that actually sounds really good. But I don't think you can really hear that on the original recording. It is certainly something that Luther Perkins did on other Johnny Cash tracks, but I can't really hear it on the original recording. But if you want to do that, I think it sounds good. On to the specifics of how to play the verses of this song then. And as I said, it's potentially quite a confusing song to play because it's got all of these key changes going on. But I think if you understand the theory behind what's happening, then it's actually not too bad to sort of negotiate your way through these chord changes. Now, the important thing to realise, I think, is that all of the chord changes in each verse of the song are exactly the same relative to one another. So although we've changed keys for each verse, the chords still move in the same kind of way. So here I think it's helpful to think in terms of the numbers system for each of these chords. So for instance, verse 1, we're in the key of E, and the chords move like this. We've got a bar on the 5 chord. So in the key of E, E, F, G, A, B is going to be the 5 chord, and the B7. E is obviously the 1 chord, and we also need a 4 chord, which is going to be A. And for verse 1, we've got a bar on the 5 chord, then a bar on the 1 chord. Then we do that again. Da, 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 da. Then we go to the 4 chord for a bar. Ends out on the tie that binds. Back to 1. Because you're mine, I walk the line. So we've got, what have we got going on there? It's 5, 1, 5, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1. A bar on each of those chords. It's as simple as that, and it's the same for each of these verses. So let me just play through the first verse. We can then apply our bass note strumming pattern to those chords. So we've got the 5 chord to start with, the B7 to E, then 5, 1 again, to the 4 chord, which is an A, back to the 1, which is E, 5, 1. And that's the first verse. You can throw in some of those little walk ups and downs between the chords if you want to. I don't think Perkins does it that frequently. It's probably just when he's walking up to the 4 chord that he tends to do that little run. Otherwise, I think he keeps it quite simple in these in these verses. So that's the first verse in the key of E for the first verse. Once we've ended that verse, we've just done the last 5-1, the B7 to E. I walk the line. That's where the key change comes. So we're on the E chord. We're walking up a fourth to A, so we've got our little connecting melody, open, 2, 4, hit the A chord, and this A chord, it was the 4 chord in the key of E, it now becomes the 1 chord in the new key. So we're staying on that A chord for 4 bars, establishing that as the new key, as the 1. This is where you hear Johnny Cash doing the humming thing, and I think the reason behind that, why he's doing this humming at the start of each of these verses, is because it's in a new key. He needs to kind of find the right note for when he comes in, starts singing the verse. So he's humming to. I can't hum quite that low, but he's finding his key on that new A chord. So into the second verse, the chords move exactly the same way, except we're in the key of A. So A is going to be the 1 chord, E is going to be the 5 chord, D is going to be the 4 chord. But it's the same pattern, 5-1, 5-1, 4-1, 5-1. So for verse 2, that would go like this. We'd have an E to A, and again E to A, up to the 4 chord, which is D, back to A, E, 5, 1. That's the second verse in the key of A. Then we're going to walk up again another fourth to a D chord, and this is going to be the new key. We're now in the key of D. It was the 4 chord in the key of A, but now we're going to just sit on that D chord and establish it as the 1 chord in the new key. So we're going to play 4 bars on the D chord. We're going to continue in the same way. So 5-1 in the key of D is going to be A to D. Do that again. Da, 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 da. 4 chord is going to be G. And then 5-1, A back to D. Now this is where it changes slightly. Instead of going up a fourth, we're going to walk down a fourth. We're going to walk backwards down to A now. So we just come from the D chord. Walk down to A. That's our new key. We're back to the key of A. I'm going to play this verse exactly like we just did it before. So we've got 5-1, E to A, E, A, D, A, E, back to A. Then we're walking down again, and we're back home to E for the final verse. So going from A, got that little 4-note walk down. E is our new 1 chord. Da, 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 da. And it's the same thing. 5-1. Da, 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 da. Eyes wide open all the time. Oops. A, E, B7, E. Back home again there at E. So that's essentially what's going on. I apologise if I sort of made that a bit more complicated than necessary. Maybe it would help to think of it like this. We've got 3 different keys. We're starting off in the key of E, then we're walking up to the key of A, walking up to the key of D, then we're kind of going backwards. So we're walking back down to the key of A, and then finally back down again to the key of E. So we're kind of ending up where we started. I think Johnny Cash kind of sings the final verse an octave lower than the first verse of the song. So that's kind of the way I would think of it in terms of those 3 different keys. and in terms of the chord movement in numbers between those different verses. So the 5-1, 5-1, 4-1, 5-1. So I think that's about all I've got to say for myself for now on the subject of this song. I hope it was all reasonably clear to you. I realise that when we've got all these key changes flying around, there's the potential for things to get pretty confusing, but I hope that wasn't the case for you. If it didn't quite make sense, maybe just watch the video again and think it through kind of slowly and logically for yourself, and hopefully it will click. I will try and put a bit of extra explanation up on my website, maybe explain that numbers system for describing chord progressions, which if you're not familiar with that, is a really helpful way to see how chords relate to one another. I'm also going to put the full tab and music to the song up on my website. There'll be a link underneath this video. Hope you have a lot of fun learning to play this song, and hope to see you for some more guitar lessons very soon. Bye bye. Bit of a bonus then, Johnny Cash's guitar part on this song. Now when he first started recording, he didn't have a drummer in his band, and he really wanted the sound of those kind of rock and roll drums on this particular song. So this is what he did. You need a piece of paper. Alternatively, if you've got one, a high denomination banknote is obviously going to get you a superior tone, but being a struggling guitar teacher, I'm going to have to make do with this piece of paper. I'm going to thread it through the strings like that, push it down towards the head of the guitar, and this is how Johnny Cash got his boom chicka sound. Right hand is really simple. We're going to go boom, play the lowest 2 or 3 strings on the guitar, and chicka, playing the highest strings on the guitar with a down followed by an up, and it sounds like this. And you can hear that it really does emulate the sound of a kind of brushed snare drum really effectively. You've got